You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back with a special edition episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, this is a very important special edition episode as we are now into the final weeks of the upcoming May 19th Democratic congressional primary race here in Philadelphia. I have an exclusive interview with a woman who is coming for the first time to speak about her experience with one of the candidates who is running in this race. Dr. Ayla Stanford is the candidate that we're going to be discussing. I have with me a very special guest who is speaking on the record about her experience at the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium, and the experience that she had there. She was motivated by a lot of what she was reading in the headlines about her former employer's work, the nonprofit It Takes Philly, which was the entity that hired her, and what she wants people to know about, in her words, what really happened from the eyes that she saw. So without further ado, my special guest is Tori Owens, who is of no relation to me. Because people will begin to be like, Owens, is there a relation? We have no relation. But she decided to come on the show to share her experience, and I look forward to the conversation. So good afternoon, Tori. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate the time.
So we don't know each other. I think I may have heard of you or seen you at the Black Doctors Consortium in the past, but we don't have a relationship beyond, most of this interview, which is important to note. But you're coming out now, speaking out about what's going on. What motivated that? How did you find me, first off? What made you want to share your experience, and why now?
So I want to start by saying that this is in no way to discount anyone on a personal level, or try to bring anybody down. I just want to speak my truth and my experience and share that with you. Again, like you said, I went through a period of time during the pandemic where I worked with Dr. Ayla Stanford and her organizations, as you previously mentioned. And my experience was all over the place. Very, as I mentioned in our communications, a lot of highs, a lot of lows. And the lows were, to me, pretty telling. So when I saw that she was running for Congress, especially given, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, given her previous position as the Health and Human Services Region 3 Director of Pennsylvania, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder what's going on. So I had looked at her campaign page. I think it's Stanford for Congress or something like that.
Yes.
And seen kind of the communications. And I was just like, oh my goodness. Given all the information that I have from my personal experience, as well as what I would call a track record, to me, right is right and wrong is wrong. And given all that I know, given my experience, nothing to detract from anybody's accolades, I wouldn't want this person to represent me in Congress.
And I think it's important to note, you're a Black woman. Is that how you describe yourself, as a Black woman?
Yes.
I think so much of the conversation, through the campaign is that anyone who has critiqued Dr. Stanford, she has framed it in some cases as misogynoir. And I think it's important for people to understand, you're a Black woman, you worked for her. How do you take it that some people might frame the conversation as another attack on a Black woman running for office?
So I'm looking at the definition. I love to look at definitions because it clearly allows us to clearly uh, frame what we're speaking about.
Mm-hmm.
Misogynoir is a specific form of prejudice combining anti-Black racism and misogyny directed at Black women. Coined by activist Moya Bailey in 2008, it describes the unique intersectional oppression of Black women. Oppression Black women face,
Yeah.
particularly in media, popular culture, and daily life, where racism and sexism converge.
Yes.
That being said, as I tried to preface by saying this is no attack as on her as a Black woman, on her accolades. She is a accomplished physician. She has a great bedside manner. When it comes down to representation at the state and federal level of our country, of our interests in Philadelphia, that requires a certain level of trust, a certain level of dignity, a certain level of accountability that I have not, in my experience, seen that Dr. Stanford has. In fact, I've seen quite the opposite in the time that I've worked with her.
So let's talk a little bit about you. What's your background? Who are you in this Philadelphia scene and in this healthcare scene? And then how did you get in connection with Dr. Ayla Stanford? Let's start at the beginning.
Okay. So I'm originally from Southern California. I moved here to go to graduate school and at Delaware State University. I graduated with my master's degree in biological sciences. Here displayed on the wall. Oh, wait, you can't see me.
No, they can't see it.
I went into a career in research and specifically in cancer biological research, which is what my thesis was on, neuroblastoma, which is a childhood cancer. And so I went into the workplace as a laboratory manager for several years, realizing that I always wanted to work with people. I always wanted to work directly with patients. So I came to Philly, got another master's degree and post-baccalaureate certificate to try and boost my resume for medical school.
Where did you get it from?
Drexel University College of Medicine.
Yeah.
And that was in a master's in interdisciplinary health sciences. From there, I worked again as a a laboratory manager. The first one was at AI DuPont Hospital for Children. Then I worked at the Wistar Institute here in Philadelphia. And subsequently got into medical school at Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. I'm quite the ambitious person. My mom often says I put too much on my plate. I just really like to serve, and I think that I think, as much as that goes, I think I have great leadership qualities. I don't like to lead with an iron fist. I've shown in my previous leadership positions that I have the capacity to take on these leadership roles. So naturally, I wanted to run for some positions in different organizations at my school. And one is the Student National Medical Association, which was born out of before the civil rights movement happened. African Americans, Black people were not allowed to join the American Medical Association or the student version of that. So the National Medical Association was born kind of like our historically Black fraternities and sororities. We have the National Medical Association and medical school, and then also the SNMA. I became co-president of that during my second and third years at Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. And when I was in my third year, going through clinical rotations, the pandemic occurred, and basically we got taken out of the hospital. I was on my pediatrics rotation, going into my fourth week, boom, pandemic hit, we're out of there. So we're at home, we have nothing to do. We're now doing our rotations online with our professors, which is a very interesting experience. And being the co-president at the time, I had, all this access to a lot of different physicians who acted as kind of mentors to our organization at our particular chapter at our school.
Yeah.
And one of those was Dr. Felma Scantlebury. She is the first African American transplant surgeon and female transplant surgeon, excuse me. And I we came to have a really good relationship. She emailed myself and my co-president about a volunteer opportunity. And before this, other opportunities had come up, but this one was specific. It had been about a month or so into the pandemic here in the US. And I was like itching to get out of the house and do something. So this opportunity came up to go work with this prominent pediatric surgeon, Dr. Ayla Stanford, beautiful Black woman doing her thing. She recognized a need for um, testing in underserved communities, and particularly in Philadelphia, that just happens to also coincide with our communities, Black and African American communities, underserved, not getting testing, not getting treatment. And so there was a need. She came up with the idea to address it. And so the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium was born through her own ideology and mission. And when I saw that opportunity, I was like, oh my gosh, great. I joined on day 2. We met at a church. I don't know if you want me to keep going, but basically,
Yeah, no.
the pastor of her church, I'm not sure if she's still a member there, um, is, am I allowed to say names?
Sure, yeah, this is on the
Okay.
record, yeah.
Okay. Is Reverend Marshall Mitchell. And the Black Baptist,
At
or,
Salem Baptist Church?
Mhm.
Salem Baptist Church. So you
Yeah,
you met her day 2 of this experience with
right.
Reverend Marshall Mitchell.
Yes. And so he was the conduit basically that had access to all the other, Black churches
Mhm.
in that community in order to enable us to get into these parking lots and create a mobile COVID testing unit. So she also, it's the consortium because she gathered up her other African American doctor, uh, uh, professional friends and colleagues, and then somehow came in possession, I think through LabCorp or something else, don't quote me on that, to get tests. And she threw everything in a van and we started going to these church parking lots with Marshall acting as, the communication point between these churches.
And that
The
was when you were all doing testing. So this was in 2020,
Correct. I
spring of
believe
2020.
late March, early April of
Yeah. So
2020.
this was spring 2020. So this was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
A lot has happened in 6 years, huh?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So about 6 years ago, around this time, you was doing COVID testing in
Yes.
parking lots and all throughout Philadelphia with Dr. Ayla Stanford.
Correct.
And, I guess the way you said earlier in the interview, you said rise and the fall, the highs, the lows. How was the high?
The high was getting to see all of and coming into contact and being able to network and develop relationships with all of these African American and people of color who were physicians in various fields coming together for the greater good. That to me brings me so much joy to see Black excellence. I was like, I want to be a part of this. I love serving. I love helping underserved communities. I have a track record of doing that in college and graduate school, just all throughout my life. And so this was just seemed like an awesome opportunity to help in the community, in our communities. And what better way to do it with other Black physicians who I'm aspiring to become like. And so it just was a beautiful thing from the outset. That first day we were at, for me anyway, this is the second day for the organization, literally like 6 or 7 of us, some physicians, some medical students, some nurses of various kinds, and just doing testing in Penn Memorial Baptist Church parking lot. Literally had 16 people that day. The very next day, or either maybe 2 days thereafter, I think that time we were going every other day, or we went from every day. Either way, the point is that the very next time we met was at Enon Baptist Tabernacle Church.
Hmm.
And as you know, that is like the Baptist church
Oh,
of
absolutely.
Philadelphia. Oh, with Pastor Alan Waller.
Yes.
And that we had over 400 people that day.
And
That's
what?
how quickly and rapidly this organization became known. This service became available to people, and people obviously wanted and needed it. So they came out in droves. And to me, that was also a beautiful thing in that we had, like I said, 10, 15 people. And then, and I'm talking about again, the medical staff along with some other people, like her husband and some other friends
Hmm.
and things like that. And then we knew that this was going to continue to grow rapidly. So I emailed to members of the SNMA, the Student National Medical Association, and at my school, and people wanted to, like myself, we're eager medical students. We want to get our foot, we want to have patient facing experience, uh, however that may come. So they were eager and ready to come out and join. And I recruited many medical students to come help do that.
So you were a volunteer at this point still?
Yes, this
A-
was all a volunteer
And it was
operation.
unpaid at this point?
No, not at all.
How much, so you weren't getting paid. So what was your title? You just volunteer. What was your role? What was some of the work that you was doing, and what was your hours and involvement like then?
Ooh, hours were like crazy. But I was just happy to be there and be involved
Yeah,
and be
totally.
helping people. And I'm pretty sure that everyone was. So anywhere from 7 o'clock in the morning to 6 to 8 o'clock at night,
Okay.
because this is a full blown operation. At first, it was just one van, then we had to expand to two to carry all of the supplies, the tables, the computers, the paperwork,
And what was
the
your role
COVID
specifically?
tests.
What was your, I mean, I know you was
Me,
volunteer, but what
in
were
the
you doing on
beginning,
the job?
in the
Yeah.
beginning, because this is all new, she wanted only the medical professionals doing the tests. So it would be a medical professional and a medical student or
Hmm.
another staff member. I was other medical student or staff member that would
Hmm.
accompany said medical professional to a car or to a person, because there was drive up and walk up, to do their test. And basically, this is before LabCorp switched from paperwork to requisitions on the computer. So we had carbon copy paper. We had to make sure that we were accurate with medical information. So I would enter their demographics onto the requisition page, make sure that their sample was properly labeled, and then processing of the sample thereafter, not processing like testing it, but
Right.
making sure that it's coupled for quality control and making sure we're not mixing samples with other people's names and things like that, and getting it to LabCorp at the end of the day.
Right.
Also, setup, breakdown, everything in between.
Right.
But yes, that was my initial role.
So when did you go from volunteer to employee?
So I cannot say the exact time. I want to say about maybe half a year in. Let me see when this actually
So
was.
you would say probably maybe you said halfway. So was it in the same year of the pandemic? Was it in 2020?
So I let me preface by saying before this, the grant was given,
Okay.
awarded to Black Doctors COVID
And which
19
grant you're talking
Consortium.
about specifically?
Hmm?
Which grant? You're like the city grant? Was it a
Oh,
big grant?
sorry. Yeah. Philly's Black Doctors Consortium receives 3 million in federal funding. So this is from the federal government,
Okay.
from the country.
So that was the big amount. And that was what in 20, that was in 2020 or
22.
2021? So 2022.
But
Mm.
yes, but before that, because of the rigor and um, the impact that this organization was making on the community, headed by Dr. Stanford, there were loads and loads and loads of funds coming from personal donations and maybe donations from other organizations. I don't know
Mhm.
which, but ultimately, I believe the number is 13 million fully that came in to help fund this organization through the pandemic.
Okay. And
This is before.
so you
So,
was so when you was volunteering, but you said maybe half a year in, around 6 months,
so
or yeah.
about half a year in, due to, I guess, those donations,
Right.
she wanted to show her gratitude, and this is, an ode to her. I appreciate that. These were, she started kind of giving people, I guess, based, I don't know what her rank system was, but based on, and I never asked what anybody else got, but she started writing us like checks on It Takes Philly, checks.
Yeah, It Takes Philly is the entity that encompasses
Yes,
the Black Doctors Consortium and other
correct,
endeavors that she has in this healthcare system.
correct. Sphere, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So she
So,
started writing us like checks.
mhm,
We weren't on a payroll. These were just like checks.
okay.
And then at some point in time, we became legitimate employees. I'm not sure exactly when that occurred, but I want to say about a year in.
How
So
much was she getting per check when she was giving these checks? How much was she giving you?
it ranged from anywhere like 150 to $500, maybe every 2 weeks or so.
And you was
I
still
think
doing
the
like
most I ever got on at that point in time was $1,000, and I think it was around Christmas time,
Christmas of 2021 or 2020?
2020, because
So
it was like a form as like a bonus.
bonus.
Like,
So you all were getting like these little stipend payments. It seemed like 100
yes,
here, 100
yes.
there.
I
And
didn't know how to title it and I didn't want to use the word stipend because I didn't really know
yeah,
how
but
it
she would
would.
just give you a little pay, a little check here, a little check there.
Correct,
But
correct.
there was no ties to hourly you was working these
No,
weeks. So for that
no.
whole year, initially
So
volunteer,
technically, at that point in time, we would still be considered volunteer. Like, I wouldn't consider that.
right.
Yes, she paid us, but no one was expecting, oh, at this, we are definitely going to get a check. It
But
seemed
y'all
like
were
it was,
working in a way, like, I mean, based on what you were saying,
oh,
you was
yeah.
giving full-time labor.
But from the expectation from the outset was never to get paid. It was to volunteer,
Right.
get volunteer experience, to work with
Right.
people.
Well, you know, she was getting paid.
I can't say,
Well, I
I
mean, at
didn't
some
know
point she
where,
was, but
yes,
I'm just trying to
yes.
understand this. So,
I didn't know where the money was coming from. I assumed it was, and I later came to know that it was from donations.
right.
I also never knew the full number until I saw a article on it.
Hmm. But during that time, you was staff without being staff, even though you was
Correct.
working like 40-hour shifts a week.
Oh,
More than 40 hours a week. I
well
just want to
over.
be clear about this.
Yes.
So you was working more than 40 hours a week.
Oh
This
yeah,
money
most
was coming
definitely.
in, millions was coming in. You didn't know what was going on, but she was just every other week would give you 150, 200 here, a little something here, and then your biggest check was $1,000 bonus at the end of that year of 2020 for
Yeah.
Christmas time.
And again, I'm calling it a bonus, meaning that it was above and beyond what we were receiving
Right.
during that time.
Right. So
Regularly.
when did you become an employee? Like when you was like, okay, work contract, you're not a volunteer, you're getting a consistent revenue stream.
I cannot give you an exact date, but if you bear with me one moment,
Sure.
if you would like to
Yeah, sure.
speak on something else, I can.
No, I got you. I mean,
can get it for you.
I appreciate your attention to detail and specificity given everything. Um, at least how long do you recall working for Dr. Stanford or working for It Takes Philly or the entire entity? Like as far as when you was an employee, how long was that?
At least when I was an employee, I'd say for a year and like uh, definitely close to 2 years.
Okay. So it was amount of time. It wasn't a couple of months. You was there for a
Oh,
substantial amount of time.
I found it. Ooh, wow, it's earlier than I thought. So, okay, to correct, now that I found that, so March of 2020, late March. All that time, probably maybe for about probably I'd say 4 months in or 2 months, 3 months in, we must have started receiving those little checks. And that didn't closer to when we started becoming so Christmas was not the right date then. But at one point in time, I did receive a higher than normal check than what we were receiving.
But that was in
Um,
2020.
Hmm?
That was in 2020.
Yes, and now I'm looking. I got my offer letter as my position was lead researcher. But again, I was doing all the things that I entailed to you when I sent you my position uh, information about what I was doing while I was with the organization. It says, "Hi, Tori, and this is August 28th of 2020. I will forward this to you." And that's when I got the offer letter for to become salaried.
So you became salary on August 20th, August 2020.
Yes.
Okay.
The end of August, correct.
The end of
So
August.
going into September.
Yeah. So end of August. So before then, you was getting small little checks. What was your title position in August of 2020?
So the title was lead researcher.
And so you would say you left when around, when did you leave? Or when do you think it began to wrap up roughly, if you would estimate?
Early to mid 2023.
Okay, so you was there for about, in this entire
Or,
endeavor, about 3 years. Volunteer to now, it was about roughly three
yeah,
years.
yes.
So when did things start to get weird? When did things go left?
Def left. The thing is it didn't take a acute, like sharp left. It was little bursts of turning the wheel slightly to the left. Things like, and I could have been better at setting boundaries, but being requested to work basically at all times to get things back when we weren't on the clock. Um, she knew that I was an early bird. She's an early bird. So she would email me at like 5 a.m. asking for things, before I came in, and just an environment of, oh, if you want this, I afforded you this opportunity, so you should do whatever I say. Kind like when I say it was not necessarily spoken, but more so implied by the environment that was fostered.
Mm.
I hope that can.
Well, let me explain more. For what do you mean by that? I would say.
So, in our previous communications, I did explain that we did joke while we were there, the group of us that I was closer with. I was like, "Man, we're in a cult." Like, and they would laugh. We'd all laugh. People would say it, but some people would be like, "No, no, really, we're in a cult. Like, this is definitely a cult." But it was a kind of just like a joke, and I detailed to you out what a cult is. And
Mhm.
so I feel like instead of trying to define what the actual actions were, and like I said before, to define that in that framework is a little bit better.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I get it. But people have codes, people have groups, people are there. Um, when did you start feeling uncomfortable? What was those signs? I mean, because you said that, hey, this is not someone that you think should be in Congress. This is somebody that you said that you said that your work experience there was a lot. What were those things like?
the way in which she interacted with her team, the creating of like a hierarchical structuring centering upon herself rather than on, not saying that she wasn't mission oriented, but she was at the center of everything. We weren't really to question anything. At some point in time, something had happened at one of our vaccination sites. And I had posed a question to one of the operations managers, like, why aren't we doing this? And I guess he had went back and said something to her, she took me into her office and asked why I had even asked the question. So I cannot pinpoint a specific point in time. It was just the way in which she was moving, the way in which the organization ran. I knew that when I was on rotations in the hospital, we have good experiences, we have bad experiences. What I learned from that year was I take the good and I say, I want to incorporate this into my future practice as a physician. And the bad, I would say, oh my gosh, I would never do that. There were a lot of, oh my gosh, I would never do that type things. Um, this is kind of hard because I don't it to be frank, mental, emotional abuse, a fostering of a toxic work environment. I never fully understood how we previously spoke about the the nature of It Takes Philly versus Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium versus real concierge medicine versus the Dr. Ela Stanford Center for Health Equity. One is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. One is a for-profit. How is the money being funneled? Why am I an employee of It Takes Philly when I'm working for BDCC? Which one is, where is the money going? And I came to find out from someone who was taking care of payroll that there were people who had never worked for the organization that were getting paid a biweekly paycheck. And to me, that's just wrong. It doesn't really matter where the money was coming from, or how I don't know how it was labeled. I don't know, but I do know that people that family, friends that never worked for Black doctors a day in their life were getting paychecks when the money started rolling in. And that to me that's enough reason right there. Despite any of my personal feelings about Dr. Stanford and the way that I was treated during the time, like talking down to people, making them feel less than. Then suddenly something good happens and you're brought up again, and only to be, it's like an abusive cycle where you're struck down and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I spoke roughly to you about that, I'm sorry. Oh, here's some praise, here's this, here's a little bit of money, here's some food. And it's like like she would, before we started getting paid, between Marshall, the reverend of Salem Baptist,
Yeah.
and her, they would put money together and feed us lunch and stuff like that. So it's like you give these little nuggets, but then at the same time you're constantly like beating down on your workers. It's like this continuous, like I said, cycle.
You felt like she'd be down on you? You felt like she'd be down on you?
Oh yeah, most definitely. And again, I can't remember, this is 5-6 years ago. I can't remember the exact words she said, but it was like a constant barrage of negativity. But then you would take, again, an abusive relationship is the best way I can describe it. You would take these nuggets of good things that she would do and be like, okay, well, maybe it's not that bad.
And when you say abusive, what do you mean? What type of abuse?
Verbal.
Okay.
Verbal. Oh, you're not doing enough. Oh, I asked, like, ridiculous requests for ridiculous amounts of work in small amounts of time. Things that were, basically it's just that. And the way in which she would disregard you if you didn't meet her expectation. And it was almost a passive aggressive type thing. So if something, you could have done something unbeknownst to yourself, and then the next day for some reason she's ignoring you, or on site, or not, you're coming to her and she's not giving you a response or something like that, and you're like, well, what did I do? I don't even know what I did. And then the next day she, something goes well and she's giving you something. So it's just like, okay, I'm confused. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? I have no idea where I stand with this person at any given point in time.
And this was in a stressful environment, clearly, with everything going on with COVID and things like that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Who was else
But
on?
like,
Yeah, who
mhm.
was else on staff as far as management goes? I mean, was this a manager? Was this a coacher, or was this specifically her? Who was on leadership? Was there other people in leadership operating the same way, or was this all coming from the top
Yeah.
with her?
So when I say it comes from the top down and the shit rolls downhill, that's exactly what it is. So what she's displaying as this leader, this is the leadership style, is now the people that she's put in place are doing the exact same thing. So the nurse that she put in charge of the nursing staff, her brother that she put in charge of she made the CFO at some point of which organization, I have no idea. At which point, um, she made her brother's best friend. She kind of layered it with family and friends and people that would, for lack of a better word, do her bidding. And then just keep it passing it down. So there was like a director of operations, there was a director of, a what's the word I'm looking for? Director of finance, director of HR. Um, I was the leadership, the research leader, whatever they called me. And yes, the same environment was passed down, and it was because those people again had this like undying cult like level commitment to her, to whatever their motives were to push themselves forward in in their careers, or just to be close to something they thought was going in a positive direction,
Hmm.
and benefit from that. And those are not bad things to be a part of. But what is bad is that you are perpetuating this style of management to people at their detriment. Because number one, I mean, I don't know what other people's salaries were. I know what mine was. I
What
know
was
I
it?
was being underpaid.
What was you being? I mean, you're going now. How much were you paid?
I was offered 45,000. I did counter. I was not offered per year. Sorry, and I mean, at this level of my career, at that level of my career, I could have I should have been making like, substantially more. And
So you
then
was being
given the
paid
fact,
$45,000 a year,
mhm,
and what was your title?
lead researcher. But again, that doesn't even encompass. I guess they just had to put a name to it, and I did do research for her. I did
But
write.
you did
Uh,
more. What was you doing outside? Because you're, I mean, 45K. I
mhm.
mean, it's been reported that she was getting upwards of 250. I've heard 300,000. We're talking some serious six figures.
Yeah.
And you were getting paid $45,000.
Hmm.
And
So that was my offer,
this is a
and I
full-time
did send.
job?
Mhm.
Was this a full-time position?
Oh yeah, and again, more than full time. The amount of time I spent draft, uh, making sure that documentation was correct for our like Excel sheets where we kept that were encrypted and kept patient information for various studies that we were going to try and publish. Um, for documentation of all the each site that we did for the COVID testing, making sure all of that was tight. I did everything from COVID testing, like I said, general setup and breakdown, um, processing of the samples, calling and training people to call the positive patients and make sure they knew protocol about quarantine and how long they should quarantine. Then later, as I told you before, we did an antibody study. So that's where the lead researcher position came in, because she did have the foresight to be like, okay, we know a vaccination is coming at some point in time. Let's collect this data and see what who has COVID-19 antibodies, who has formed resistance to COVID, this version of COVID-19 before the vaccination hits. So
So when you
I
counted that,
collected that information for a year.
right? So when you counted that option for 45K, what did you end up getting when you countered?
It stayed at 45.
They never gave
That
you. They never.
no.
They stay at 45,
Yeah.
despite all this increased funding that they was getting.
I had no idea about that at the time. This is retroactive information.
Right. So how do you feel
And
about knowing that that this substantial amount of money was coming in while you was getting, as you would put it, underpaid? $45,000. You're college educated. You're doing medical work. You got 2 master's degrees. You're a black woman working under a black woman who clearly understands that equity issue. You're working over 40 hours a week. Your title is lead researcher, but you're clearly doing more than what a lead researcher would be.
phlebotomy, COVID testing, training, writing up protocols, writing publication drafts, all types of things. And it when it comes to those things, I am not the best person at advocating for myself. But also in that same token, I didn't expect to be taken advantage of by a person that I pretty much revered and looked up to.
You feel like Dr. Ayla Stanford took advantage of you?
Yes. Yes. Frankly, yes. I don't even feel like it. I know because I know what my worth is, as you stated, yourself, given my credentials and given my background, given that I'm a published scientist before I come to you, given that my career speaks for itself and what I have to offer. I had no idea what her ability financially was to pay. So at the time, you're like, okay, like I have a job. I am making money when I'm in.
Did you feel like you were being exploited?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the definition, then yes. Coercive power, um, selfish gain. Selfish gain are the words in particular that stand out to me in the definition of exploitation. Because as I said, she was at the center of everything. And I get it. It's your career on the line, it's your organization, it's you created it. But this isn't ultimately about you. This is about the people that you serve. And you going into Congress is all about the people of Philadelphia and the people in the district that you're going to be serving. And if you can't be trustworthy in specifically, just even in the financial aspect of your organization, there's no way that you can translate that. You're already doing these things behind the curtain that are untrustworthy and just completely morally inept. And you're asking for my trust to put you in a government position. No, that's that's just not going to happen for me. It's not right. And you asked previously how I came to know about you. It's because I had looked up something on Dr. Stanford. I had started looking into, and I just not Googled, I looked up on Instagram, her name, and your post came up, and several other posts came up, and we did talk about the APAC funding. I don't want to, I mean, unless you want to take it there, but I saw your post, and I was like, oh my gosh, finally someone is seeing and looking into what I've known all these years. And I felt like there could finally be a place for me to voice what I've known, a safe space.
Understood. So with everything going on, what do you want people to know as someone who worked there? Because she has touted this on the campaign trail. And she says, listen, she made all this impact. She gave Black people opportunities. She saved lives. She's done the work. She's ready to bring this, to Congress. And there's been so much talk about, like you said, the APAC stuff, the funding, these allegations, which, to be clear on record, Dr. Stanford has denied receiving direct funding from APAC. That's what she has said. But there hasn't been much conversation about, the work around COVID-19 from people who was there at the very beginning. And so what do you want people to know about your story? You made it clear earlier that you're not trying to take her down, that it's more about your own personal concerns about this culture, this work culture and things. So what do you want people to know?
I want people, what I want is for Philadelphians to be informed about the people that they are voting for. Everybody has their skeletons. Nobody is perfect. But I'm sorry, if you cannot handle this up and comings and getting donations and money, and your immediate response is to mishandle those funds and illegally distribute those funds to people who don't even work for your organization, who is, as we previously spoke about, has pretty much risen to the upper echelons without like a blemish, without a scathing comment, without anything. But I can tell you, it's not only me that has this story. And you should do your research on the people that you are voting into office. I want people to just educate themselves and not blindly follow what is being perpetuated in the media. Because again, if you can't be trusted with $3 million, imagine what you're going to be doing with what's available to you at the level of the state and federal government. That to me is already a salient enough point of something that's proven that I know happened for me to say I'm not voting for you, because I can't trust you in that realm.
Mm.
To me, that's enough. Not even, notwithstanding my own personal experience, because anyone can say, oh, she's just scorned. Oh, she just this, she just that.
Now, how do you feel about that?
I
Because
am
people
not.
are going to,
Mhm.
some people might say, stories like this, when people do whistleblow, they'll say, oh, disgruntled ex-employee. How do you take that? How do you navigate that? Because, there will be some people that will go that route.
Oh, the point is, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I am disgruntled. I am disgruntled at the audacity of the lies, at the audacity of the deception, at the audacity of painting yourself to be a person that you're not, and then putting that on full display, expecting no one to hold you to account. That's what I am disgruntled about. I don't care about anything else other than accountability. If you are not able to be accountable in this small space that you have been given the opportunity to do so much good, and you're philandering, sorry, not philandering, you're doing all these crazy things with money and people, and exploiting emotional abuse of employees, underpaying staff while you're getting paid millions of dollars and receiving millions of dollars. And God knows where what you posted about was astonishing to me. I had no idea about that form. And I was like, wow, there are so many other people that are in these leadership positions that aren't listed on this form. Like, where are they? Where is the accountability behind, first and foremost, all of this money that you received? Where did it go? How was it used? Where is the documentation? Where is the accountability? And not only that, from my personal experience, this is a, just my personal experience. I would never want this person to represent me in any public space, in any government entity.
Understood. Well, thank you. Is there any other lasting thoughts that you wanted to share before we conclude our interview? Any final takeaways? Anything that you want? I mean, there's other employees that you say, do you think they should speak up? I mean, there's other people that have you talked to other people, I guess, and that you work with that you say share similar experiences? Do you think they're afraid of coming forward?
I mean, we've spoken previously about the things that we went through while we were working for Dr. Stanford, and I would say they should take it upon themselves if they want to speak out. And maybe, hopefully, given that I'm raising my voice about this and speaking to you, like I said, on the record, putting my voice to this cause, I guess, right when we're coming up to the election, like this is the time for people to say like, hey, this is something that we won't stand for. So maybe people will come forward. If they do, that's on them. If they don't, I understand also, because again, when you're a person who's in this position, this level of power, who's already worked directly with, with a former president in these spaces, it can be hard, you as this person, this feeling like this smaller person, to come out and say boldly, hey, this is what it is. I don't believe this person is trustworthy in this moment. Doesn't mean they're a bad doctor. Doesn't mean they're ultimately a bad person. But what you do matters. What you, what you do behind. So this is so random, but I worked at Bath and Body Works, and this is so silly. I worked there as a part-time job for like 10 years. And one of the main things they said, no matter how terrible the business is or whatever, was do the right thing even when no one's looking. And when no one was looking, what did you do? When the first chance you had at this phase of your career, what did you do? And to me, the money point already says enough. Okay, the other thing with the multiple organizations under different flagship, who even knows where, what, how that money was used? What I can tell you is that causes me to be distrustful of her running for this position and asking for my trust, asking for your trust, and asking for the people of Philadelphia's trust for her to represent us as a city, as a state, at the level of the House of Representatives. It's just make your own choice, but that's what I feel.
When was the last time you saw her?
Ooh, years and years ago. Probably the last time I went to, when I went there it had to be when I went there in early 2023 to go speak to her about, coming back. And I was basically told that, there was no position to come back to. I haven't seen her since then.
And why did you take the break? Was that to study or what was you doing?
Yeah, it was to study. And I mean, again, it came to an end at that point, and it seemed like a immediate cutoff. But really, I had that time at which I was studying to be away from that and realize how my mental health had been improving, how less stressed, even studying for a medical board exam, I was. Just, yeah. I mean, are there any other questions that you have? Like,
No, I think you've answered everything. I mean, I think I just keep thinking to myself, like, I don't know. I mean, would you describe yourself as the surviving Dr. Stanford, surviving the Black Doctors COVID Consortium? I mean, was it the experience that intense? I mean, you described it like it was a cult. You said that there was a cult at a point. You described it as a cult at one point in time. A cult culture, I guess.
Yeah. Again, we joked about that. Do you mind if I read what I wrote to you?
Yeah, sure.
So I said, for clarity's sake, a cult is defined as a group or movement exhibiting excessive, unquestioning devotion to a charismatic leader, object, or ideology. They are defined by authoritarian, coercive control, isolation from mainstream society, and systematic exploitation of members causing psychological, financial, or physical harm. I said the group is Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium. The movement, COVID-19 relief services to underserved communities in the greater Philadelphia area. The charismatic, coercive, authoritarian leaders, Dr. Stanford, who really did require excessive and unquestioning devotion to her rather than to the mission itself. We were all going to be there for the mission. That's why we were there. We were volunteering. We weren't getting paid. I'm not here with you to get paid. I'm here because I just want to do the right thing. I want to make sure that people are informed about who they are considering voting for. Requiring ruling with an iron fist and doing shady things behind closed doors is not someone that we already have enough corruption in the government. I don't want to add to that pool. Coercive practices such as, non-compete agreements are one thing, non-disclosure agreements, this unspoken aura and air of threat of termination should you, that's something that I didn't get to speak on actually. I have ADHD, by the way, so if I do go off on a tangent, just really back in. But
I hear you.
when I spoke about, I told you if people questioned her, they just were gone. They were there one day and gone the next day. And there were several doctors that it was just dumb stuff that would happen. And then she would completely like excommunicate them from the organization. And I'm talking about like colleagues that she's known for years and years. I mentioned one Dr. Scantlebury, who I mentioned before, who she hired on. I forget what her exact position was, well, with the organization, but she was head of something. And then when we started transitioning to the Dr. La Stanford for Center for Health Equity, they had some sort of disagreement with and Dr. Scantlebury has so much experience to offer, and I'm sure that whatever she said was not unreasonable or whatever it was. Dr. Stanford didn't like it, didn't matter. She was fired. The next day she came in, oh, Dr. Scantlebury will no longer be with the organization. That was the opening statement. And nobody asked why. No reason was given. I later talked to her and she was like, I've never been fired from a job a day in my life. And we were all astonished. There was another doctor who was intimately involved with the organization, and there was this is why it's so silly, the things that went on that would have a retaliatory measure exacted towards them. I think this doctor's wife had cooked for the organization. They had some issue about payment. Next week, he was completely gone. His daughter was supposed to be doing something with It Takes Philly. She was no longer involved with that. And it was just like these stark contrasts of here one day, gone the next. And that's when I say it was just this, I couldn't tell you exactly what the words were, but it was like, okay, you can be replaced, you can be put out. You, even at this level, even at the level of doctor, even at the level of first female Black transplant surgeon, you can be replaced in her world, period. Thrown to the wayside. It didn't matter. So who is little medical student like me? Who the hell am I? I'm essentially a nothing to her, even though I offered and provided so much, not just me,
Yeah,
so many others.
So there was a revolving door, you're saying. It was
Yes.
a little bit of chaos there.
Yeah. And so to summarize again, just the fostering of a toxic work environment, and everybody that's worked in the toxic work environment is going to know exactly what I mean. Where you feel that you can't speak up for yourself, or you'll be retaliated against, where you feel that if you go against the grain, then you're going to be ousted or left without a position, or I don't know, this and that, whatever. Like I said, there was no formal HR process or whatever, but whatever it was, the people wanted so much to stay with her that they were willing to get on her level, if that makes sense, of style of management. And I don't even know, maybe go against their core values to be there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
No, absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for taking out this
you're
time
welcome.
to share this. This must be tough. I mean, it seems like you haven't
Yeah.
really had a space to. I mean, it's your first time talking about this publicly, but I can imagine, um, you know, I guess you feel like this is important to share to people clearly, given what's coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I mean,
I definitely do think it's important that people should know all sides of things with people anyone that's running for an elected government position, no one is going to be perfect and no one's going to have a perfect record. But the things that I know that have happened and that are public facing, should you go look, are enough to me to say, no, thank you.
Well, I want to thank you
You're welcome.
for coming on and talking. And that concludes this special edition episode of Ernestly Speaking. I know there's going to be a lot of conversations that will be had on social media and online, but I hope this is the start of a different type of conversation. And as always, be well and be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.